For this pattern, we're going to need a few supplies. You're going to need 2 welded metal rings, and I definitely have to say go with the welded metal. I have in the past made the mistake of using a non-welded metal ring, and eventually the metal ring worked its way out and the strap no longer held to it. So it ended up breaking because I didn't use a welded metal, because there's that slight tiny gap. It catches, sprays the yarn, and slowly lets it slip through, so you lose row after row for them. So a welded metal ring, you can actually pick them up pretty cheap online. You'll need some darning needles. I do recommend a threader, just because, well, I am horrible at trying to thread yarn through the darning needle, so just a suggestion, up to you. We're also going to need a crochet hook. We are using a 5mm crochet hook for this pattern. You're going to also need 7 beads from the bottom. Now you can choose to not put the beads or the fringe onto the pattern if you would like, but you just need a bead that has a large enough center diameter that you can thread the yarn right through the center of it. So yes, also darning needles will come in very handy here. Now you also need some yarn. I have, these are all number 4 weight cotton yarns that I'm using for this. You can use a different type of yarn too, but I'd say stick with the number 4 weight. I am using white, which is peaches and cream. Guess I work off of cones quite a bit because I make a lot of stuff. So then also you'll need some black yarn for the very center of the flower. This one's also by Peaches and Cream. You'll need some yellow. You don't need a whole lot. I've done this whole thing and barely even touched any of the yellow. The yellow I'm using is the Sugar and Cream brand. And then you'll also need some brown. This one was also from Sugar and Cream brand. I've made several different sunflower things and I haven't even used the whole skein of it. So I do recommend, you know, the bags and whatnot, because normally I take them and I throw them into one of my rope baskets, the yarn and everything, and then they all get mixed up and messed up together. And if you're using a yarn for a project and you go, oh, I ran out just at the very end, keep them in there also. Tends to keep the label right there with it too, so you can go, oh yeah, it was this brand, this color. Go pick up a new one. All right. And you will also need a pair of scissors in order to cut your yarn. To begin this process, we want to take our black yarn and you want to create a magic circle. And then we want to chain 3 and then double crochet 15 times into the circle. So we have our 15 double crochets into the circle. Then pull the tail of our magic circle, and we want to slip stitch into the 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round to join. Secure the end and tie off. And that is our first round. For our next round, we want to take our brown yarn, create our slip knot, then we want to attach it into one of the stitches from one of the double crochets. And then we want to chain 2 And then we want to do a half double crochet 2 cluster. So we go into the same stitch, yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all the loops, and then chain 1. So you have your first cluster. Now into each of the rest of the 15 stitches, you want to do a half double crochet 3 together cluster. So we yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all of the loops, and then chain 1, and we just repeat that for all 16 stitches. So you have 16 total of these clusters. All right, now for our last stitch, we want to go ahead and slip stitch into the second chain of our first chain 2 of the round and tie off. And for our next round, what we want to do is attach our yellow. And we're just going to go into one of the chain 1 spaces, not into the stitch, just one of the spaces. Then we want to chain 3. And then what we're going to do is double crochet 4 together into that same stitch. So to do that, yarn over into the space, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through your first 2 loops. Then yarn over into the same space, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through your first 2 loops. So now we have 2. Repeat that. Now we have 3. And now we have 4. So there's 5 total loops on our hook. Yarn over and go through all 5 loops. And then chain 2. And then into our next stitch, what we want to do is double crochet 5 together into that chain space. So just like the 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now you have 6 loops on your hook. Yarn over and go through all the loops. Chain 2. And you just want to repeat that for each chain space all the way around. So you should have a total at the end 16 of these clusters. All right, now that we have reached the end, what we want to do is slip stitch into our 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round and tie off. And that is our 3rd round. For our next row, we want to attach our white yarn. We just attach that into one of the chain spaces. And then we're going to chain 3 and then half double or double crochet twice into that same chain space. And then chain 1. And then into the next chain space, we want to put 3 half double crochets. Chain 1. The next chain space, we want to put 3 double crochets. then chain 1, and into our next chain space we want to put 3 treble crochets, and then chain 2, and then 3 more treble crochets into that chain space, and then into our next chain space we want to put 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then into our next chain space we want to put 3 half double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 treble crochets, chain 2, and 3 more treble crochets, then chain 1, then into our next chain space we want to put 3 double crochets, and chain 1, and then in the next space 3 half double crochets, chain 1, and then 3 double crochets, chain 1, now 3 treble crochets, just to give you a little show on to what's going on here. The treble crochets are actually forming up the corners because it's round, so we need to adjust for the changes in height. So we're just doing a repeat, double crochets, half double, double crochets, trebles, doubles, half, doubles, trebles, and so we're just repeating this all around. So our corner spots get actually 6 stitches into it plus a chain 2. So we just repeat this all the way around. So our next stitch is 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 half double crochets, three double crochets, chain 1, 3 treble crochets, chain 2, 3 more treble crochets, chain 1, and then slip stitch into our third chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. And here we are. For our next round, what we're going to want to do is slip stitch into the next 1, 2 stitches, and then slip stitch into the chain space. And from here we want to chain 3 and double crochet 2 times into that same chain space, and then chain 1, double crochet 3 times into the next chain space, chain 1, double crochet 3 times into the next chain space, chain 1. Now we're at the corner, so what we want to do here is double crochet 3 times into the chain space, and then chain 2, double crochet 3 times into the same chain space again, chain 1, and you just want to repeat that. Double crochet into 3 times into each chain space with a chain 1 between, all the way around, and in your corners you do 3 double crochets, then a chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets, and just repeat that pattern all the way around with the 3 double crochets into the center ones until we get to the end, and I'll be back there. Here we are at the end of this row. We did our last 3 double crochets into that chain space in our chain 1, and we want to slip stitch into our third chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join, and then tie off. And then you want to make 2 of those. Now that you have 2 of them made, now they're right side and the opposite side. I like to look at it. If you can see, the stitch seems to be pushing more towards one side. So this is the front, so I'm going to put that face down. And then the same with this one, but I'm going to keep it front up. And we need to stitch these 2 together. Alright, so we have that one and this one. So we create our slip knot, and we want to, there's 2 chains, we want to go to the one next to the double crochet stitch, and the same with the other side also, and go ahead and slip stitch into there in order to join the 2 halves. Then we're just going to match stitch for stitch all the way down the side and slip stitch. And then same also with our chain spaces, go through the loops into those chain spaces. And we want to continue doing that all the way down this side. 2 stitches would go into here because we have the 2 chains for that chain space. Come down this side, down the bottom, and back up this side, but do not sew this top shut. I'll come back as soon as we're done with that. All right, so we have slip stitched all the way around. Now from here in the corner, what we want to do is chain 3. And then we're going to double crochet into each stitch all the way around the top opening. So we're just working in one side, and then all the way to the end. We're going to do into this, where this is, where our seam is, we're going to do 1 double crochet there too, and then come all the way around each stitch to the other side. So just 1 double crochet per stitch, going all the way around the entire opening of the bag. All right, now that we've reached back at the beginning, we want to slip stitch into our 3rd chain of our first chain 3 of the round in order to join. So that is the bag so far. Now here it gets a little bit different. We want to chain 2, then take one of our welded metal rings, pull the yarn through the center, and then create our last chain. And then the same for do your next double crochet and pull your yarn through the center of the ring to do your second double crochet. So we did our chains for the start and then 2 double crochets. And as you can see, it's bringing and attaching right to this metal ring. So we want to continue, but now we don't need any more into this ring, but we want to double crochet into each stitch going around until we get 2 stitches from the center seam stitch on the other side. All right, now here we are on the other side. Here's our center seam stitch. We are 2 stitches from there and 2 over here. So whenever we yarn over, pull it through the center of the ring, and then continue and do our next double crochet. And do that again, pulling the loop for the top whenever we yarn over through the ring. So yarn over through the ring, come down, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through your 2 loops, yarn over, and go through your next 2. And then again, whenever we yarn over, come up, go through the ring, grab your yarn, and then come in, pull up a loop. Now you have 2 loops, pull through your first 2, yarn over, and your last 2. And that attaches everything right to the metal ring. And just continue until you are 2 stitches from the end on the other side. Now we are on our last 2. So what we want to do is yarn over, but pull it through the loop. Pull up, go through, and then the last one, yarn over, but go through the loop so that you're attaching it to there. So I take my hook, kind of put the loop in front of the yarn, pull the yarn through. Then I don't want to go through the loop again, so I kind of pull the work and the yarn to the front, pull up my loop. Now I have my 3 loops for the double crochet, pull through my first 2, yarn over, pull through my last 2, and that puts those all onto there, and then I want to find that third chain of our first chain 3. I want to slip stitch to it in order to join the round. Secure the end and tie off. So here we are with our rings attached to the piece. If I can get that laying out a little bit better. Now for our next step, what we want to do is take again our white yarn, create a slip knot, and then onto one of the sides, slip stitch into the ring to pull up a loop. And then you want to create your chains for your bag length. Now, depending on how long you want it is how many chains you're going to want. So go ahead and play with it. Try and figure out how many you want to do for yours. But chain. With mine, I went with 90 chains for the length that I wanted. You might want yours shorter, or you may even want it longer. But to attach, you simply take your hook, go through the metal ring, pull up a loop, and slip stitch right into the stitch you were in. Now go ahead and do a single crochet into the loop. Again, so we'll need to turn. So as you can see, it's all chained and attached. All right, now you're going to want to turn your work. Now, since we're up a bit too, so now we can get into our next stitches. We want to, in one loop only, single crochet into each stitch all the way to the other side of the strap. And I'll be back whenever we get there. All right, now that we're back at this side, what we want to do, make sure you do not twist your yarn at all for your strap. But what you're going to want to do is single crochet into the ring here in order to join. So now that actually brings you up a little bit more so that we can actually just take our work from here. I can show you that. Turn and simply single crochet into each stitch all the way back to the other end. And now that we've got it attached that bit more, you shouldn't have any problems with it twisting and becoming twisted for while you're wearing it. Now we've made it back to the front here, and we made a single crochet into the ring in order to join. Now we have a 2-row strap. So by all means, if you're happy with just the thinner strap, we're all set, and you can tie off from here. Or if you want, by all means, go ahead and add one more row all the way around and then tie off on this side. For me, I think this is plenty. So cut your yarn and then go through and just weave in all of your ends. And we have our little satchel messenger bag. So now that we have the straps all completed and woven in our ends, what we need to do is cut 7 strips of yarn 24 inches long. And then we're going to take one of our hooks, go into the outermost corner, and simply attach our yarn. Just kind of loop it right in and through and pull. Then we're going to do the same in two. That was right at the corner underneath the chain one space. Well, the bottom chain one space, not the one on the side. This one is going into the area of the chain one space between the two double crochet clusters of 3. Straighten out, even out the lengths of the ends. Pull through and down. And we just want to repeat that for each between space. So now we have some going all the way across. Now what we're going to do is take the yarn, thread it through some of our small wood beads. And just slide those right on up to the top there. And go ahead and put one onto each. So I've gone ahead and gotten all the beads attached and threaded on, and then just tie a knot underneath the beads in order to keep them from falling off. Now you could also add in more fringes onto there if you'd like. Do some more fun with all the beads going down, maybe net them a bit too. The possibilities are quite endless. Have a little bit of fun with it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and go ahead and share it with all of your friends. If you'd like to also continue getting a free pattern at least once per week, be sure to hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and get notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.